Namaste. Greetings to everyone and all for this international webinar on the role of yoga during COVID time. I'm extremely happy to share my thoughts here. But a small disclaimer, I am neither a yogi nor an expert in education who can authoritatively talk about the topic of today's. But I am a small facilitator, an agent of change who believe that yoga is the foremost need of the hour for the humanity, even before the COVID time and during COVID and beyond. So let me share my thoughts with you today. The topic you can see is, should yoga find a rightful place in education? I suppose my slides are clear about it. The message which I want to give, it is an appeal. You people are the agents of change. Yoga in its true sense is all about life, behind life and beyond life. It is even more relevant during COVID-19 time and of course beyond also. And education must incorporate yoga to prepare for a new era. To my mind, yoga is a holistic concept. The word yoga itself is from the word yuj. Yoga is a union of mind, body and spirit. And recently we are seeing the surge of body-mind medicine. Some people use the word psychoneuroimmunology, PNI. So it is a connection between body, mind and spirit. During COVID times itself, we have seen the major offshoots of the problem are the psychological problems of depression because of lockout and because of isolation. The problems of the disease caused and the death is mostly due to the fact that many of the people had comorbidity. Their immune system was not cooperating. So which means that even for a disease like COVID, which is very, very ferocious, it is the interaction between body and mind which ultimately decides whether that person can come out of it. Now, it is not only in terms of body-mind medicine. If we look at the education system also, it is a holistic concept. We talk about knowledge, we talk about skills and the attitudes. Indirectly, we talk about the head, hand and the heart. And the ultimate union which we expect in this cosmos is human beings, nature and the cosmos or the universe. We must remember that human beings came into this picture quite late. But the man has started competing with the nature. And the nature was disturbed. That is how we have the problem today. So ultimately, yoga believes in the unity of human beings with the nature and ultimately with the cosmos. Vedas or ancient scriptures, they don't talk about God. They talk about the nature. And the shloka which we recite in yoga is always Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. All of us are aware about the true meaning of yoga and how Patanjali gave it a very, very comprehensive structure in the form of 8 limbs of yoga called Ashtanga Yoga. All of you are perhaps familiar with this, but point which I am going to make is that yoga has been mostly blown up out of proportion as far as the asanas are concerned, pranayams are concerned, and also to some extent dhyana. The remaining 5 pillars of yoga have not been really considered seriously. For example, yama. They are the disciplines, what you should not do. You should not tell lie. You should not do crime. You should not steal. You should not indulge too much in sex, brahmacharya. And of course, you should not be possessive, aparigraha. Satya, ahimsa, asteya, brahmacharya and aparigraha are the important 5 principles. Again, we have certain things you must do it. Good practices. Shucha. Purity. We say purity is nothing but a step towards divinity. And a word which can capture purity is purity in terms of words, action, thought, character, and heart. What we call as watch. So watch represents for a combination of all this together. Then only you are pure. Santosha stands for contentment. Tapas. Tapas is not something yajna, which used to do it, but is the austerity which we maintain in our life. We maintain some vratas, we have certain fastings. All the religions have got very good practices of keeping austerity. Swadhyaya stands for learning of the scriptures, depending upon your religion. There are a number of scriptures which you can study, and they give us a lot of ideas how we have to behave, how we can solve our problems in life. So the scriptures are very, very important. And Ishvara Pranidhana, this is very, very important. This is a principle that Lord or Bhagavan is the ultimate person, the ultimate entity or the power. He is the real power. We are just instruments in his hand. And I should also tell you something about pratyahara. It is exercising restraint. Exercising restraint is very, very important. And dharana, people call it, it is all about holding on. Holding on to the values and holding on to the virtues. Meditation is the next step, and the ultimate is samadhi. When the meditation, the meditator and the meditation, they merge with one, a state of complete bliss. Now, how this connection between body, mind and spirit works? There is a saying that bend the body, mend the mind and end the senses. This talks volume about the connection which we have to form between body, mind and spirit. When we talk of body, we talk about the exercise. We talk about the food and nutrition. So, the body is an entry point for most of us. So that is why we have to care our body, like we care our car or the vehicles. If we take care of them, they will give us good service. Mind is the superpower. Mind is wavering. We say that, even the meaning of yoga itself, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. It is all about putting restraint on the mind which wavers. How you can achieve that? By fostering positive qualities. Positive qualities of truth, satya, and duty, dharma. Along with that, cultivation of peace and brotherhood, that is shanti, is very, very important. Because only when we can tolerate other religions, other thoughts, other ideas, we can't be wholesome persons. And the instrument for that is selfless service and love, or what we call prema. So love is the most primordial force of the humanity. And last but not the least, non-violence or ahimsa, which is very important. When you talk of this spirit, we talk about the ending the senses, attachment to action and detachment to results. This is one point perhaps I'll be repeating on and off. If we have to really succeed in life, you should not worry about the rewards. You should work and go on working. Passion for excellence is one thing very important. Many people think that spirituality is something about sannyasa. No. Spirituality is about action, but enjoying that. If you take work as a kind of a play, all the time you are happy. If you take work as a load, you are depressed. And the prayer, chanting, and many other ways of surrendering to God are very, very important things which we bear in mind. So we can think yoga is nothing but a lifestyle change. When we think of lifestyle change, we can think of these 4 quadrants. In Hindi, we can call it as ahar, vihar, vyavahar, and vichar. Ahar stands for food, vihar for relaxation exercises, vyavahar stands for your practice, how you behave, and vichar is your thoughts. As far as food is concerned, all of us know about the role of good food, how it controls the whole systems. About the food, I'm not necessarily talking about the nutritious food. I'm talking about how much food you take, how much frequently you take, and how exactly you take your food and enjoy. These are all very important aspects of food. Coming to management of time, this is very important psychological aspect. People find it stressful because they cannot prioritize their tasks. In fact, the management gurus talk about prioritizing. They tell that, in terms of urgent and important, so you make a grid. Urgent and important, you have to do yourself. Urgent, which is not important, you can do little later, or you can delegate to others. The things which are really not urgent and not important, you can delegate. Emotional control is very important. The point which you have to understand is, are you upset when others criticize? Many of us, when others criticize, we become upset. When others praise, we become very much elevated. I think we should try to learn to forget both. People who are very ambitious, they find it more difficult to cope up because they are unwilling to accept the defeat. And I'm coming to this point again, the present competition spirit, the human, I call it an inhuman race. There is a race, big race. I have to be the best. I have to be number 1. That kind of attitude is the enemy of your growth. Some people are very aggressive. Some people are neutral and shy. I think what is required is we have to strike a balance. And some people are short-tempered. They are extremely good people, but because of their tongue, because of the way in which they put it, they become sometimes unpopular. Positive thinking is one of the very important attributes of yogis. Yogis are mostly positive thinkers. They make impossible into possible things. They say that, impossible is found in the dictionary of force. Ceiling on desire. We have to differentiate between need and the greed. This is the biggest mistake that human beings are going to make it. They say that I want to get promotion, I want to become so and so. Once they become that, no, this is not the end for me. Next, I should be like this. So all over the career, they are under stress. They are chasing for something, and at the end realize that, what did I? Of course, I got all these things. At the end of the day, have I maintained my cool? Have I maintained my relationship with others? It's a big question. On the contrary, if you put a ceiling, if you forget about what you are going to get, you will get more than what you deserve. The lesson from Bhagavad Gita is that karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadacha. You have the right to perform your duty. Never bother about the results. So you should go on work and work without bothering about the fruits. Now problems are going to be there everywhere. But for many leaders, problems are the opportunities. Because of the problems only, we come out with creative solutions. And it's important to believe that we should always put our 100%. Even if you put 100%, if you don't achieve it, you will not regret. On the contrary, suppose if you put only 70%, afterwards you think that, okay, if I had put that 30%, perhaps I would have succeeded in my project. So we should believe in putting 100%. Focusing on the present moment is another tip for your mental growth. Many people worry about the past. In fact, people worry more about the future. And some people live in the past. Both are not good. It is only the present moment which is real. Yesterday is outdated coin. Tomorrow is a post-dated check. Today is the hard cash. I cannot appreciate more than the next tip, that is the power of giving. Power of giving is one of the important fruits of yoga. Yogis are like trees. The trees give fruits. And somebody will throw a stone, but the tree is not bothered. So they say, when you give something, it is your unconditional love. You don't expect anything from him. Just give and forgive. Forgive even if a person doesn't return it. And get and forget. Even if you get some blessings or whatever it is, forget about it. Just think that it is a matter of temporary satisfaction. So we believe in balancing priorities of life. It is something similar to Maslow theory, but not exactly. Everyone wants a good health. We want livelihood. Roti, kapda, makan, we say. And then we want career advancement. But this you have to do it while maintaining your relationships. You can't say that I want promotion, and I ditch my family life. It is not good. So how you can do that? If you put spirituality at the framework, at the core of your life, it is possible to balance good health, relationships, livelihood, and career advancement. So life is all about balancing act. Coming back to the topic, how we can develop yoga or yogic thinking in education system. Friends, please remember that teaching yoga is not something like teaching science, maths, or any other subject. Here, The subjects are caught by role modeling. We say it is mostly hidden curriculum. We see what others practice rather than what we are going to preach. So for topics like yoga, attitudes, professionalism, values, we think of this four-pronged approach. First is setting expectations. We must be very clear as to what we expect, what we mean by good quality, what we mean by these values. Everyone must understand in the same language. So it is an institutional responsibility to tell clearly and to define the rules of the game. Once you do that, the next one is role modeling. We want teachers who are the role models, who behave that way, who practice 24/7 in the same manner. And the next one is providing experience. When I say providing experience, I don't say it is the textbook. Textbook is only the one experience. The real experience comes from the life situation. Unfortunately, during COVID time, we are deprived of extensive field work, project, and learning from the community. We have to wait for a little more time. But we need to find out methods, means in which we can relate with the community. So the curriculum which we can expect for yoga and soft skills like this is physical activities, exercises. We can have a number of clubs, hobby clubs, so many types of activities, because the youth especially, they will be more interested in physical activities, and you have to give a lot of importance to that. The professional competence is only a part of it, whether it is medicine, law, engineering, whatever you take, it is only a part of the training, real training and the real education. After the physical exercises, etc., it is the community activities. We have to expose the students to communities, either by direct field trips or by projects or by giving even simulated work. In the times of COVID, you can create scenarios. You can make the students think about it, how they feel in such circumstances. And remember that the spiritual activities, prayer, and respect for every religion, what we call Sarva Dharma. Unfortunately, in our education system, we have misunderstood our secular concept. We thought that secular means avoid thinking about the religions. This is the biggest misunderstanding. Secularism, to my mind, is respecting, trying to find good about every religion. So we need to think about how we can bring it in our education system, wherein we try to emulate, we try to appreciate, we try to cooperate, we try to collaborate with the activities which belong to different spiritual thinking, spiritual thoughts, and even religious thoughts. When we talk about education, I don't talk about the usual tools and techniques. There are so many techniques, so many methods of teaching. But to my mind, as an educationist, I believe in the role of three entities. One is the feedback. Feedback means what others think about you and what others can help you to become a better person. So feedback is not criticism, it is an opportunity for growth. And an honest feedback means it is an opportunity for one to grow and grow. Feedback should be followed by mentoring. Mentoring is a guru in a new avatar. Earlier, we used to hear about gurus who were really the mentors for lifetime. They inspired, they motivated, they empowered, They did everything for their Shishyas. Now in the new avatar, we can't expect perhaps that kind of relationship, but a kind of professional relationship in which you respect your mentee. You work with your mentee, try to listen, try to help him, and try to see that his journey goes smoothly. And there is also a need for us mentors. We think that mentor means a senior person. I beg to differ with that point. I think that even I will be mentored. In fact, I am getting mentored by my juniors who teach me so much of ideas and techniques about the technology, about the IT, about the new skills. So it is nothing but a learning process and importance of reflection. Reflection is nothing but finding out what happened, what really happened, what I could have done, what I should have done. And next time if I face, what I am going to do. So this is a question of being or appraising situation yourself, trying to think about it and trying to find solution. One line about assessment. Though in formal education, all the time we talk about scores, we talk about the marks, which is not important. Even examination is not important. What is important is giving help in the form of mentoring, feedback, and reflection. So we need a document for that, and that document is called portfolio. And in a nutshell, what I suggest is a culture of competition should be replaced by culture of cooperation. And it is not simple. I am telling you, if you think of education system, all the players are important. The parents are important because it is where the value induction takes place. The children come to the schools wherein value formation takes place. The teachers. Then they move on to the professional colleges like medical, wherein the good values which they bring, you have to nurture them, you have to support them. And when they go to the workplace, you should value. The workplace should value and recognize the good values which are already developed. And ultimately, the society should have a value culture in which they recognize, respect, and reinforce the good things. The last point which I want to make is that yoga education should start with individual transformation. Individuals are the agents of change. From individuals, we move on to the institutes. The institutes will take up from us, and we combine with institutional reforms. We can think of social transformation. Thinking about the COVID scenario, again, there is a need for yoga. What is this yoga? It is a yoga, it is a connection between the governance, the people, and the professionals. Professionals are struggling. People are struggling. So unless all of us combine together, we cannot perhaps solve this important problem and make a way for a new beginning. So my message to everyone is, be the agent of change. And with this good wishes and positive thinking, I come to the end of my talk. And I say that yoga is the life force, and yoga is the future, and it is Anadi and Ananta. Thank you very much.